Right, over to you, Hyla.
Fab, thank you. So morning everyone. As Rosie said, my name's Hyla Greenwade. I'm the project manager for Sector. It's good to see so many names that I recognise popping up in the meeting. So hi to everyone. I will explain a little bit what Sector is at the moment, but essentially I'm here to let you know what the construction industry like in Essex and particularly in our local patch. I've got quite a lot of info, so I'll whiz through it, and then I think Rosie, the idea is that we'll do questions at the end. So, Rosie, if you can move on to the next slide, that would be great. So, just to set the scene of what construction is, we all know the word, but what does it actually mean? In its basic terms, it is essentially anything that involves building something. It's very basic fundamentals. So most people think of this as houses, but actually a large portion of the construction industry is things like roads, schools, parks, stadiums, communities, quite frankly, and it can come down to things like repair and maintenance, so things like conservatories on the back of your home. So whilst excuse me, a lot of people think of construction as building houses. Actually, it covers a vast more than just house building. So I'm going to have the next slide. So to put that into context of the UK, so this is the UK. So 190,000 businesses, large and small. The majority of them small businesses, actually, although there are some large main contractors, most of the work is then subcontracted down just in the nature of how construction works. It's 6% of the UK economy on a yearly basis, which is worth in the region of 113 billion a year to the UK economy. And a lot of, we'll go through more of the different types of jobs that are in construction, but there's around 170 different professions within the construction industry. So it's a much more vast industry than I think most people realise. Rosie, if you can skip forward one. So in terms of Essex, these are just some quick stats for you. So over 800,000 residents are employed within construction, although about 10% of them commute out of Essex, which leaves us a bit of a problem actually. But there's that sort of many that are working. Average salary is around 39,000, which I think, particularly if you told your young people at schools and colleges, they wouldn't believe that. They think of it as perhaps a relatively low paid industry, but that actually isn't the case at all. Within Essex, we've got 17,500 construction businesses, say both large and small, mainly small within our area. And to put, although I said it's not all about housing, one of the stats that we've got at the moment is that just to deal with the current demand, we're looking at about 7,000 new homes needed every year, just in Essex alone for the next 20 years. So 7,000 homes every single year for 20 years. And that's just housing. If you put on top of that all the other elements of the industry, then actually you can see sort of the scale of what we're talking about. Rosie, if you can move on. So to give you an idea of the types of large scale projects in Essex, most of these you've probably heard of. Lower Thames Crossing, I'm sure that you definitely would have heard of. There's some major roadworks that are going on at the moment, which are big areas. Bradwell B Power Station, obviously another area. You may not have heard of the garden communities. So I think there's about 5 going up around Essex over the next 20 years. These are essentially new towns in Essex, and our nearest one is Danton Hills, which is sort of on the borders between Basildon and Brentwood areas, and that's set to bring a hell of a lot of work into the areas. We've also got things more locally like Better Queensway, so that's a huge housing project that's going on right in the centre of Southend. Southend Airport Business Park, of course, continues to grow. And dare I say it, the Roots Hall development for Southend United, whether that actually will ever happen, but it looks like planning is going through at the moment. So we've got that sort of just on our doorstep as well. And what that equates to in a financial sense is just in Essex alone, 1.9 billion per year is estimated to be spent on new construction projects. So that's not repair and maintenance, that's new things, and that's for the foreseeable future. So there's a hell of a lot of opportunities that are available within this field. Rosie, if you can move on. The graph there, I'm not going to go into in too much detail, but essentially when we're looking at the types of jobs that are available in construction, most people think of the trade jobs, so the carpenters, electricians, plumbers, that sort of thing. But actually, what I wanted to point out is that over the next 10 years, what's actually the new jobs that are going to be created within the industry, and actually this for the industry as a whole, there's about 45% of these jobs are actually not the skilled trades. They're the managerial, the professionals, the office-based roles. So when you're thinking of construction, please don't just narrow that down to the trades. Actually, there's vast numbers of jobs in the local area that are not trade-based. They are the managers, the professional roles, which I'll show you in a minute, and some of the office-based roles. So if you have someone that actually is has a love of maths, then actually the construction industry is still very much for them. It's not just for the people that tell you that they just want the hands-on jobs. There's much more out there. Rosie, if you could move over. So to give you an idea of the types of jobs, and these are relatively in the order that we think that there's going to be the highest demand for them in Essex over the next 10-15 years. So you can see it's things like surveyors, project managers, civil engineers, such as the like that come from LMM, architects, but then you've also got people like building information modelling, so BIM technicians. So these are people that essentially take all the information and data from a project and put it all together to model the different options that are within that project. So if you've got someone that is saying that perhaps they want to be a games developer or programmer, that would be an amazing job for them. When it comes to the skills and trades, the sorts of things that are going to be in high demand over the next 10-15 years are the wood trades, so your carpenters, your joiners, electrical trades, including heating and air conditioning engineers within that as well. Plumbing, labour is still in big demand and will continue to be. Down to your plant operators, so they're the operators of the big machinery, the cranes, the excavators, that sort of thing, and of course the civil engineers coming to this as well. So these are the types of jobs that are going to be in high demand in Essex over the next 10-15 years. And what you'll see is that really, no matter what interest, skills or anything someone has, there is something for everyone within that. So construction is a real industry to be looking at for the people you're supporting. And Rosie, if you can go to the next slide for me. Again, a big graph, but basically what I want to show you with this is the orange is the baseline demand. So this is what we know we need on a yearly basis, and as you can see, that demand this is just within Essex is increasing every year. And what you'll see on top of that, those other colours are the bigger projects that are planned to go on to the Bradwell B, the garden communities, that sort of thing. Although it looks like it's sloping down the demand when it gets to sort of the mid 2030s, actually that's mainly just because we don't know what the next big projects are going to be at that stage. So the chances are it's not going to dip back down, it's only going to increase. Just to give you an idea, the Bradwell B power station will put in an additional 10,000 jobs at its peak in about 2030. So although we might think that's out of our patch, actually in construction you tend to have to travel a little bit for your jobs. Also to add into all of this is that the construction industry has a massively ageing workforce, and construction at the moment 50% of people are over the age of 45. And the number, in a really horrible stat that I found, was that in 2014 to 2018, the number of 16 to 19-year-olds coming into the industry halved. And actually, that's exactly the opposite of what they need within the industry. So the construction industry is facing really big skills decay, with people retiring and less people coming in to fill those positions. So there are real opportunities to come in and to also work your way up within construction to help fill those roles. And Rosie, if you'd like to go over a slide for me. So to sort of summarise a little bit, if I was working with young people, but also we work with over 18, so sort of anyone that's thinking about the industry, a few little top tips really. Main thing I would say is please don't discount the construction industry. There really is something for everyone, no matter what your skills, interests, or quite frankly even your exam grades. If you're A-star student, there's something definitely for you. If actually English and maths and some of your other GCSEs were a bit of a struggle, there's still something for you. So construction really can help anyone get into a career and a job. Another thing is, if you're female, the industry at the moment is on about 14% females, and they are desperately trying to increase that to make it a more diverse workforce. So the industry really is crying out for females in all different roles, but in truth, probably particularly the skilled trades roles, So if you have any females that you're supporting, please do ask them to consider the construction industry. If you're supporting anyone that is unsure of perhaps what role within construction might work best for them, then I would really highly recommend the Go Construct Careers Explorer website. Essentially, it's like any careers program where you put in your skills and interests. It asks you a few questions and it will come out with a few different ideas. But actually, it's pretty spot on. It's a pretty good, and it often comes up with roles that you perhaps had never even heard of, let alone considered. So it's a really good resource for everyone to be using. Another point is in construction, it's an industry probably more than I've known for other industries where they're really keen on people climbing the ladder, if you like. So lots of people start on the bottom rung and then work their way up. I don't think there's been one business that I've spoken to where they haven't told me a story of someone that came in as a labourer and has worked their way up to being a site manager or something similar. So it is an industry where climbing the ladder is really, once they know that you are have the right attitude, the right work ethic, then most companies want to keep you and want to help you climb that ladder. And quite frankly, you'll hear this for every industry, but probably more so than qualifications, although that does differ obviously depending a little bit on the job. But positive attitude and a good work ethic is what any employer is looking for. It's no different to any industry, but it's really what we hear time and time again within the construction industry. Another point there is that a lot of people start their roles within the construction industry, particularly if they're going into more of the trades or manual roles, start their roles through recruitment agencies. It's quite a common and normal way for people to get into the industry, which can put some people off. However, it is quite the norm. And usually what companies do is you'll perhaps be through the agency for a month or two and then they'll take you on after. So it's quite a common way for people to get into the industry. Also, last thing to mention there is that lots and lots of businesses within construction are small medium enterprises, so much smaller businesses than the big tier one main contractors, and a lot of the ways that they recruit is through that personal network and also through social media. So I would really encourage people to make use and check to make sure it's appropriate their social media profile, set up a LinkedIn account, and just spread the word really. You'll be surprised how many people work in construction and are looking for someone that they want to work with. So just a few little tips there I said for young people, but really for anyone coming into the industry. So the last slide is just to show you some areas, some resources that are available to you. The Go Construct website, you've probably all seen and heard of. It is brilliant. There's lots and lots of resources on there, lots of videos that you can make use of within your careers education on websites and things like that. Their YouTube channel is fantastic. There's a really good video which shows just the vastness of the roles that are available. So I would definitely suggest looking on that Go Construct website. You can also get CITB ambassadors as well. Obviously, you can't necessarily have them coming into your schools or colleges at the moment, but there are ambassadors. So if you look onto the Go Construct website or the CITB website, there's a link there on how you can request them for potentially online careers talks at the moment. I realise this one isn't for now. However, there are open doors events. So throughout the year, different construction sites literally open their doors and you can book in to go and have a site visit. I realise this year that's not going to be doable, but hopefully potentially next year that's something that you can do with the people that you're supporting. And finally, just to let you know that Sector, the programme that I manage, is available across South Essex for predominantly over 18s. We provide free training and support to help people find work in construction. But likewise, if you've got a young person that just wants a little bit of advice as well, so maybe a 16, 17-year-old that just wants a bit of advice on how to get into the industry, then we're more than happy to speak with them as well. It might be about apprenticeships or anything like that, and we definitely can help with that too. But so it's all free training, including things like CSCS cards. We can do asbestos awareness, fire marshal, banksman, plant operatives. And it's all free and government funded at the moment. So we are here and available to help with that too. So I think that's me. Hopefully I whizzed through that with enough time to give us some time for Q&A at the end. Thank you, Rosie.
You really did, Hyla.
Sorry, I was conscious of time.
No, it was perfect timing. So thank you very much. We've now got, that was really, really great. Thank you. We've now got a full 13 minutes for any questions you might have for Hyla, or any questions you might have for Andrew as well. So please feel free to put your hand up or pop something in the chat box, or just sort of speak out loud if you've got any questions at all. We've stunned the attendees into we've actually given them time for questions and answers today. We've got Tracy Thompson.
There are a couple in the chat box, aren't there?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, Rosie. There's a few questions in the chat box.
Perfect. Okay, I'll start by reading them out. Tracy, are there opportunities for young people with additional needs who might need support or work at a slower rate than others? So just in your personal experience, Andrew and Hyla, are you aware of any companies?
So firstly, for me, I thought it was a really good presentation, and actually someone within the construction industry, I now feel really buoyed up. I felt buoyed up anyway, but now I'm even more buoyed up.
It's amazing.
It's really good, really good. Thanks for that, Hyla. Excellent. I think just before we get into answering some of the questions, a couple of things I perhaps wanted to add, if I might, just from experience. One of the things that we've found this year, not that it's ever going to happen again, touch wood, but actually we've been surprisingly coronavirus proof as an industry, largely down to government allowing sites to stay open. But actually, we've all found different ways to work, and actually you'll see the results of in the press, I'm sure. But actually, the construction industry, taking a bit of a dip, but actually it's pretty strong, and we're seeing that the market is very, very strong, and that's largely down to government funding stuff and pumping stuff in. So it's also, it's a public sector. There's public sector and private sector. So we are beholden a little bit to the government, but actually, the signs are that there's that desire for investment. Picking up on the small business, the SME piece that you mentioned there, Hyla, absolutely. I think that the beauty of the construction industry is that for those with an entrepreneurial spirit, there are so many opportunities to actually push that ceiling of 39k way beyond. I mean, I know some people that, lots of people that have really grown their own businesses, even sort of sole traders. They're able to pick and choose how they work and the way they work and what they work on. It's there's a really good opportunity for that. Just picking up on some of the other sectors as well. I mean, the list there. I mean, as you say, 170 different professions. But there's even specialist services as well. So acousticians, fire engineers, ecologists, geoenvironmental. So people that are interested in geology, all those things, and that's just a fraction of all those specialist services that are available. And you mentioned female, absolutely. This is a male-dominated industry, which all of us are just crying out for having a better mix and attracting people of all different backgrounds and gender into the industry. So that's definitely a driver. Sorry, so picking up on the question there about, was it people that perhaps struggle a little bit? Are there openings for construction?
Sorry, I'm butting in there as it was my question. No. But yeah, it was merely young people or adults really that might have additional needs or disability, but are still able to work. So whether there's support people with certain conditions, and because obviously I know with construction particularly, it's a fast industry. They might work at a slower rate than others, and I just what sort of support there is.
I certainly from my experience of over 30 years in the industry, you can definitely see the way the industry is shaping up. So 30 years ago, it was very much a male-dominated, sort of a proper hard industry. It was dangerous. It's dangerous. Construction is dangerous. There's no doubt about it. However, it was recognised as being dangerous, and you just got on with it. It was a man's game. You just crack on, and never mind the dangers. It's changed enormously over 30 years. Health and safety and all those things and welfare, etc., have just absolutely gone through the roof in terms of that sort of focus. And what it's also allowed is to be more open to everybody, and the support there with perhaps the larger contractors, I'd say, in fairness, and the larger consultancies, they encourage people of all description, and it's part of their culture. It's part of the culture these bit larger companies have, to make sure it's not about it kind of is, they want to make sure that it's inclusive. So I would suggest that people of all abilities and whatever, actually is a really good industry to go for.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Andrew. I'll just move on to some of the others. So Keely from Southend Adult Community College has asked, regarding the reduction of 16 to 19-year-olds going into the industry, we struggle to find employers who are prepared to offer work experience to this age group. That was more a comment, unless anyone wants to sort of pick up on that.
I think so. Sorry, I don't want to hijack.
Oh goodness, no, Andrew, we're delighted to have you.
From my experience, again, I mean, as I mentioned before, construction is a dangerous industry. Lots of health and safety measures in place, so it's potentially dangerous. That's probably the better way of putting it. People are safer on site. However, I know that a lot of contractors perhaps won't allow people under 18, for example, to be on site. So that is a tricky part of construction. If you are allowed on site, then you don't want to be sending your young people out to perhaps the less reputable builders. You want to stick to the main contractors, and they sometimes won't allow people under 18 to be on site. But from a perspective, we welcome people of all, and what that means is that you get that office experience, but also we do try and get our youngsters out onto site, be that sort of stand on the sidelines looking in and talking them through it, or actually chaperoning them around the site and getting around it that way. So there are other opportunities for youngsters to get involved.
I completely agree, Andrew, and with you as well, Keely, in that the 16 to 19 age range to get them on sites is quite difficult, and exactly as Andrew said, a lot of that comes down to the health and safety regulations that are in place. However, there is a lot of construction, as Andrew also said, that isn't necessarily on big construction sites. There's a lot of repair and maintenance where 16 to 19-year-olds would probably be allowed. There's a lot of the more office-based roles where they would be allowed to do that too. So it's just trying to find the right marketing, I suppose, really. Quite often, if it is a big construction site, they won't let them on. But there is a lot of other areas to the industry other than just the big builds that are going on.
Yep.
Perfect. Sally Webb from South Essex College has said, Hyla, do you provide free training for over 18s who are currently working in the construction industry?
No, unfortunately not. So our funding at the moment only allows us to work with people that aren't currently working in the construction industry. It's just the manner of our funding. However, what I would say is that through the CITB, there is grants and funding available for any organisations that are registered with the CITB. So that's the Construction Industry Training Board. So if someone is already working within the industry, as I said, most employers are really keen to upskill and to keep good labour. And so therefore it's worth speaking to their managers or whoever runs the business to see if perhaps they can make use of that CITB grants to be able to do that. But no, unfortunately, at the moment, sector isn't able to support people that don't work that are currently employed within construction.
Yeah, I suppose the one thing that hasn't been mentioned is apprenticeships. I mean, historically, construction industry was all about apprenticeships years ago, 100 years ago. That's what you did. You became an apprentice. Now, with the apprenticeship schemes coming through, I'm seeing far more of that kind of opportunity. And that stretches across the board in terms of the trades, but also, so I've got an apprentice on the apprenticeship scheme that sits in our office who's currently studying for his civil engineering degree, and that's through an apprenticeship. So.
Thank you. We've got a few questions from Nick Shard, who's from the Connection Service. So Nick's asked, CSCS card training, is this available for under 18s? If I remember right, it was only for over 18s. Hyla?
Yeah, there's no reason why they can't do the training for the CSCS card if they're under 18. So it's a health and safety level 1 and then a touchscreen test that they've got to do. Sector tend to support only over 18s, and that simply comes down to the reason that we spoke about earlier, where most of the industry are looking for over 18s, and our project is aimed at getting people into jobs. However, if someone is perhaps looking for an apprentice, if they're younger than 18, so maybe 7, we probably wouldn't take 16-year-olds, but if they were 17, perhaps looking for an apprenticeship or maybe had a job lined up, then we could definitely help with their CSCS card training. But there's no age limit on that CSCS card. You don't have to be over 18. It's just, unless you're going into an apprenticeship or perhaps working with sort of somewhat have a job lined up already, then it's harder for you to get a job, and if you're under 18 in the industry.
Okay, great. So we've got a few more questions. From Nick, is there business support for young people who want to start up their own building firm when they're qualified in a trade? So before we've got Susan, our economic development officer, who has popped in the chat the link to the Best Growth Hub, who support all new startup businesses across Essex. But any other comments from Kyla or Andrew?
Another one I would add to that is for 16 to 30-year-olds, the Prince's Trust also offer an amazing programme and funding as well to help you set up a business, no matter what industry that's in. So if people are looking to set up their own business and they're under the age of 30, then I would definitely suggest the Prince's Trust is a good area for help and support with that too. And likewise, we could potentially help with that as well. But I would definitely suggest, as Sujan has the Best Growth Hub, but also very much the Prince's Trust if they're under 30.
Perfect. Next question is directly to Andrew, and it says, will you be offering apprenticeships for September 2021? And if so, what will this be in? How do students find out about it? And that's Sally Webb at our South Essex College.
That's a really good question. What I'm finding at the moment is, so sorry, I was going to be a politician then and swerve the question. So directly answering the question, more than likely, I suspect probably not this year, but certainly September 2021. We'd be looking probably for another structural technician. But again, my office here is multidisciplinary, so what the other guys are up to, I'm not quite sure, but watch this space. However, you're quite right in terms of how do they find out. The answer to that is I'm not quite sure. And actually, what would be really quite good would be to have those positions sort of advertised a little bit more across the piece. What we tend to do would be to kind of advertise in sort of trade journals and things like that, which perhaps isn't the best place for youngsters to sort of have that connection with. So that's something definitely to think about, and I'll take that away and have a good think about us. But again, encourage that across the wider construction industry in our area.
Perfect, thank you, Andrew. And we could always circulate it across the network of schools and colleges in Southend if you ever pinged them on. We've got a couple more questions. Andrew and Hyla, how are you for time? We've got one more in the chat box. Do you need to head off, or are you okay?
No, I'm all right for another 5 minutes or so.
Okay, so Nick Shard from the Connections Service also asked, how is technology affecting future jobs? Are there any new jobs appearing?
That's a big question.
Oh my goodness me, yes. Again, from experience, from my personal experience, we're currently involved in lots of really great schemes, but particularly in data centers. So, when you save stuff to the cloud, that information goes somewhere, and these are massive, basically warehouses, if you like, want of a better word, particularly in Scandinavia, and they're really complex and complicated structures and buildings and the services and all the rest of it. But we're finding now that the need for modelling those buildings in 3 dimensions, so 3D modelling, is just the way we work, and that is creating all sorts of opportunities for, as you said early on, Hyla, about sort of games designers and people like that. If you're that way inclined, the opportunities are endless in terms of that sort of 3D modelling world. It's fascinating, and there's new jobs appearing all the time on the back of that alone.
Even things, and this is perhaps a little way off for the norm of building, but even things like they're very much trialing out things like 3D printing of buildings at the moment, or components of buildings. So even things as sort of IT orientated as that, essentially you could just design a building all through CAD and BIM and using different technologies and print it, which is madness. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it's going to be next week we're going to be doing that as the norm, but it's still future jobs that are coming up that will essentially solely be reliant, apart from a few suppliers, but almost solely reliant on IT technicians. So if you've got individuals that are that way inclined and have just got a good logic to them, then I would definitely say it's a brilliant industry. This is all IT. You never quite know what's going to be happening with it or what's around the corner, but in construction there's real tangible outputs to it, which I think is quite nice. Quite often in computer science or IT, you can't see the output, but in construction, one of the best bits of the industry is you can see the output. There's a building, there's a road, there's a whatever it is, which is actually quite a nice part to it.
Yeah. Interesting enough, in construction, we're leaps and we're way behind other industries. So if you take any kind of manufacturing industry, you know, they will always build a prototype and then develop it that way. Well, we don't. We draw stuff up and then go and build it. But actually what we're finding more and more is that those early days models in terms of building a prototype virtually to then go and build on site happens more and more, and that involves new skills and new ways of thinking. And the research and development budgets of all big companies, including our own and all the major contractors, you know, it's all about R&D. It's finding the new ways, the quicker ways, the more effective ways, the safer ways, and it's all about R&D in the construction industry.
Thank you. So we got two more comments I just wanted to make people aware of. Susan, the Economic Development Officer, has popped into the chat box the telephone number for Princess Trust. It probably is best to get them by telephone because they're very helpful. And then also Tracy Thompson, who works with SEND students in the council, said, "Thank you, Andrew and Hyla, this is a great session." And just about her question, if landscaping was included in the sector, and Hyla said yes. She said, "Thanks, landscaping and garden maintenance is a great opportunity for those with additional needs, and including mental health and anxiety." Yeah, so that's all from the questions. Just want to say massive thank you, Hyla and Andrew. It was really, really great session. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Really good presentation.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.